Falava, malo le sui fua mawa. Welcome to our Puna Kōrero meeting for the 4th of June 2026. I declare this meeting open. Members are reminded that this meeting is being live streamed and to please use your microphones. To begin, I'd like to invite Taku to lead us in karakia. Whakatake hau ki te tonga. Kia mā kena ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. He aki ana te atakura. He tio, he hoka, he hohu, te hei ora. Moving through to apologies, we do have an apology from Councillor Wehapi for absence. I move that we accept that apology. That's seconded by Councillor Hayward. All those in favour, please say aye. Opposed? That is carried. We're moving straight into public forum. We have 3 requests to speak in public forum today. The first is from Dame Kerry Prendergast on the Wellington Music Centre. She is not online yet, so we'll move through to our second speaker and we'll come back to Dame Prendergast when she arrives, which means we will go through to Ellen Blythe. Ellen is speaking on Councillor Fielder's proposed amendment. Would you like to come forward? If you just come and take a seat here at the front here, Ellen, you will have 5 minutes to speak. You'll hear a bell at 4 minutes. If you could press the button on the microphone next to you, and if it turns green, that means that it's on. And I'll just remind you as well, Alan, if you want any questions, opportunities from councillors, that needs to be within the 5 minutes. So when you hear that bell at 4, that's a good time to wrap up for any questions. All right, the floor is yours. Take it away.
Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. Firstly, I've made notes so I don't make a fool of myself. This is my first time speaking at a council meeting, but it's not my first time speaking publicly. I'm here to show support for what Councillor Filo is suggesting and trying to achieve, with the returning of around $3.5 million to ratepayers. Based on my quick research, that figure could equate to approximately $175 per ratepayer. Councillor Filo is reading the room and acknowledging the trying financial times being faced by us, the ratepayers. I've been a resident in Porirua for 14 years, and each year the rates increases and budgeting gets harder and harder. The ratepayers of the city are really struggling. They've been subjected to many years of rates increases and about to be subjected to new water charges. We as ratepayers have watched this council spend our money hand over fist on vanity projects, nice-to-haves and massive budget blowouts on large projects. Giving something back now to ratepayers would show that the council acknowledge its prior spending and the fact that ratepayers are financially stretched. Some so much so that they now no longer think they can afford to continue owning property and residing in Porirua, which will cause Porirua to shrink. I'd like to ask as a ratepayer that council stop spending unless on critical items. No more vanity projects, no more redoing Aotea Lagoon Gardens, no more, or actually cancel the Plimerton Domain boardwalk. Ratepayers can no longer afford to continue being bled dry by a council drunk on spending seemingly magic money that just appears. The return of this unspent money to ratepayers would be hugely appreciated by ratepayers and could show us that the council can and will listen to us, and that council could change course and move to a more restrained spending model, one that would help Porirua retain citizens rather than drive them away due to rates costs. It would be a beneficial sum of money for any household. Ratepayers are despondent and disillusioned with council and its spending. We don't really, by and large, see councillors unless attending official functions or vote seeking. If you were in the suburbs daily, as I am, you would see and hear the real face of struggle, the face of financial hardship, the feeling of helplessness, of apathy, and of impending financial doom, thanks to Te Akiwai and the extra costs coming down literally the pipeline. Rather than digress into really saying how I feel and making some very pointed and cutting comments and criticisms of certain elected officials and senior management, I won't. I will simply end by saying, please do the right thing by ratepayers and vote to support Councillor Filo's proposal. Please refocus and curb all unnecessary, non-critical spending and allow ratepayers some needed relief and light at the end of the tunnel that council isn't just going to bleed us all dry. Thank you for your time this morning and hopefully actually listening and hearing what I'm saying. And thank you, Councillor Filo, for being the seemingly lone wolf who has read the room and is, with this proposal, trying to help ratepayers financially.
Your comments, we've got about a minute and a half left for questions. Councillor Filo, you're first.
Thank you, Alan, for your submission or for coming in and taking the time out of your day. And I know this isn't an easy time of the day for people who work, so I appreciate you coming and saying what you said. My question is, if we were to do this, what would that could mean is that 3.5 million would either increase our equity on council's books or decrease it by 3.5 million. My question to you is, what does that mean to you as a resident in terms of that benefit to lower costs?
In my opinion as a ratepayer, 3.5 million to the council is a drop in the bucket, but that amount of money given back to ratepayers would be significant for a lot of people.
Thank you.
Any other questions? You don't appear to be, so thank you very much, Alan.
Thank you.
Is Dame Prendergast online? No? Okay, we will move in that case through to our next speaker, Susie Temple. Susie, if you'd like to come forward. Susie has provided a copy of some information here that will be tabled and accepted. We're circulating that out to councillors now. Thank you very much. So Susie, same for you. I believe your microphone is on. You'll have 5 minutes. There will be a bell at 4, and if you would like questions from councillors, good to leave some time at the end. Otherwise, over to you. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. Just very grateful to be here and allowing me to address the committee today. Yes, I have given out copies of my talking points. Just bear with me while I go through my notes. I'm new at this. I'm very concerned about the Te Āki Wai issue, particularly proposed water charges. How the council costs, arranges it, its debt and asset transfers, as reflected in the annual plan, will impact these charges. The proposed Te Āki Wai water charges look unaffordable and impossible to pay for many of us. They will cause enormous stress for the lower income and fixed income householders. I therefore support Councillor Kathleen Filo in her attempts to delay this process for 12 months. This will enable proper transparency and consultation. I was at a Whitby public meeting on Sunday night. There were about 200 to 300 people there. The meeting passed 5 resolutions, and they were, note especially number 4, 1. Water charges must be affordable. Annual increases should be capped to a max of inflation plus 1 to 2%. 2. The investment required for infrastructure catch-up should be spread over 50 plus years, not 20 years as proposed. 3. There should be a Commerce Commission oversight of Te Āki Wai for the public accountability. 4. There should be a 12-month delay in proposed changes, especially charging. Genuine consultation is needed. 5. Te Āki Wai Customer Charter should include a commitment to affordable water charges. People are upset, worried, frustrated, and angry. They do not feel heard. Please consider this when you look at the Te Āki Wai parts of the annual plan. And thank you so much for this opportunity. Very grateful.
Thank you very much. speaking to us. I'll just note that Te Ake Wai is not a matter that's in front of the committee for discussion and deliberation today, but we'll take your feedback on board. No, that's totally fine.
Apologies for that.
Just so you're aware, that's why you won't hear much discussion about that today. But
That's
thank
great.
you.
Thank you.
Any questions, Councillor Lawler?
Yes, thank you. I'm just wondering where you primarily get your information about Te Ake Wai. This is not a loaded question. I'm genuinely interested in the communication on this issue. So where are you primarily getting your information, and how adequate do you think the information flow is in terms of the transition to Te Ake Wai?
Thank you for the question. The net has been the major, but I have to say it's a bit scarce, and I'm not clear that all of it is accurate or concise enough to get a really full formula on this matter. So and then going to the meeting on Sunday night was great clarification, because other people have done a lot of research more than myself, and this is why these resolutions came about. Okay. Thank you very much.
Time for one more question if anyone has it. It doesn't. Mayor Baker, sorry, last question.
Well, 3 and 5 in your points are actually in the charter. Do you realise you already pay $1,924 in the Porirua rates to Te Ake Wai, and that the raise will be about $6 a week, up to $2,269? Did they make that clear in the meeting?
I must confess, I do live in Tawa.
Oh, okay.
But that's not to say I don't stick up for everybody.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Your thing will be a little bit different, but that's
Yes,
our one. I think yours is 5.
But
So
I
thank you.
hear it's becoming a whole New Zealand issue. So that's why I figure it's best to bring it up now than later.
Yes, we're doing it because we have to from the government, so thank you.
All right, well, that brings us exactly to time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Susan.
much.
Cheers. We don't have Dame Prendergast online, so we will end public forum at that point. Thank you very much again to our speakers. And obviously, you're very welcome to stay and watch the rest of the meeting as well. I'm going to move through now to conflicts of interest. I call for any conflicts of interest that need to be declared. Are there any conflicts? There don't appear to be any. There are no items of extraordinary business either, so we'll go straight to confirmation of minutes. We're asked to confirm the minutes of the Puna Kōrero meeting held on Thursday, 21 May 2026. I move that we confirm the minutes as a true and accurate record of the meeting. That's seconded by Councillor Hayward. Thank you very much, Councillor Hayward. Any questions or comments in relation to those minutes? There being none, I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That is carried. Okay, that moves us through to item 7.1. Before we move into this item, we will be receiving a presentation from officers on the annual plan. No, that's no problem. This presentation will be accepted as a tabled document and it will be included in the minutes. We'll have this presentation before we move into the paper formally, so I will hand over to Wendy.
Apologies, I was just trying to rustle up the other public participant. Councillors, as you know, every year we look at the annual plan at this time in the cycle. We call it deliberations. This year, because of a rather late quotable value process, we haven't been able to present in written form or frankly do the analysis to feed into the final rates impact. And in fact, we're still working on those impacts. And of course, it's a very unusual year because we have Te Ake Wai starting on 1 July and the separation of all our water services costs, which would normally sit inside our rates. So typically we don't talk about other people's charges, but I know that because Greater Wellington is also on our invoice, people often conflate these issues and think that they're all our charges. So today, Graham and Ian are going to do a presentation of the latest, where we've got up to with all the moving parts that we've got, and we've tried to indicate where we can the impact of what we know about Te Aki Wai charges, and they haven't confirmed theirs. They don't do that for another week or so, and Greater Wellington, who are also still on draft. So there's still quite a lot of moving parts in this. It's an unusually good outcome. It's an unusual year. But I will pass to Ian and Graham to take you through, because there's kind of a lot of ups and downs in this.
Thank you, Wendy. And it's an exciting day in the life of an accountant to present a budget to so many eager people that are on the edge of their seats with regards to the budget. We recognise that this is an exceptional year with so much change going on all at one point in time. Never before have council had 30% of the business effectively transitioning across to another entity. So that's never happened before, and it's highly unlikely that it'll ever happen again. So this really is a pivotal moment in the city's history and future. So we don't underestimate or diminish that in any way. Pulling together these numbers, as Wendy says, there are three different numbers coming together that we hope to present to you today. So there's the impact of the council rates increase for next year. There's the Te Aki Wai charges. And then we also thought that to give the full picture, it would be good to put in the Greater Wellington Regional Council rates as well, because that's actually the amount that the community actually pay. So there's three different entities involved in this presentation, all going through their own processes. And so we are, if you like, pulling together three draft numbers. And so that needs to be kept in mind as we talk this through. But it gives us the best understanding of where the community will sit with regards to what they pay next year. The structure of this presentation is really around, firstly, looking at what the city needs as far as revenue goes. And then we'll spend a little bit of time talking on the QV revaluation process, because that has had a very major impact on the way rates will be apportioned across the city. And so it's really important that that is well understood. And then we'll look at the actual rating categories and how that will play out. Noting that there are differences between how this will impact on residential versus commercial versus industrial, etc., etc. So that's the structure of the presentation. As mentioned, this is the best estimate at this point in time. And there's the three processes there that all of these organisations are going through. So council itself won't be approving rates until the 25th of June, later this month. Te Aki Wai, we have a second iteration of their pricing policy that we're basing our numbers here on, but they are set to make their final announcement with regards to their pricing charges in the week of the 15th, the 19th. And then Greater Wellington Regional Council are also going through their annual plan process. So that's also set on the 25th of June. But what we'll be presenting today are our best understanding of those prices as we know them to be today. And of course, the fourth note there at the foot of that slide is just with regards to the QV revaluation process. We were the last council within in our neighbourhood to go through this process. So we're a little bit behind the other councils. However, it's important to note that ratepayers have until the 5th of June to actually object to their property revaluations. And if those objections are upheld or acted upon, then that does also obviously impact on the city's ratepayers. It doesn't change the size of the pizza, it just changes how the pizza is divided. So I just wanted to really re-emphasise that the numbers we'll be presenting are still largely draft, but should be pretty close to the final numbers with those notes there. Just on that QV objection process, we had an update from QV who managed that process. There were 117 objections at that point in time, with the idea that with the statement that it may double. So that's something that we don't control, but that's a process that we'll just be working through in the background. So, to the first, I guess, the substantial slide that I'd like to just spend some time talking about. In particular, the first table there. So, council rates setting. The first number there, forecast rates 25-26. That's how much rates the city takes in this current financial year. So it's around about $124 million. Now, we obviously are transitioning across three waters, and so there's a significant amount of revenue that is removed from City Council and goes to Te Āki Wai, and that's been recently. We had a working assumption that it was historically 30%. We have recently upgraded, or we've agreed the figure with Te Āki Wai, and that's 39.2 million. So that's actually 31.6%. I know it's just a little percent here or a percentage there, but it does make a difference. So 31.6% of revenue will be transitioning across to Te Āki Wai, which pulls us down. If we were looking at 25-26, excluding Three Waters, we've got about $85 million of rates revenue. Now, to balance our budget for 26-27, we need 91,548. So the difference between what we've got in 25-26 and what we need in 26-27 is 6,867,000. So that's the number that we're looking at. So if we just drop down to the tables in the lower half of that slide, there's two sets of numbers, and one is kind of it's headed up before revaluations, and the second set is after revaluations. And so I just want to focus firstly on the before revaluations. And so you can see these familiar numbers, the 84681, which is the forecast 25-26 rates excluding Three Waters, and then the proposed rates for 26-27, which is the 91,548. So this is just fitting in to the numbers that are in the earlier part of the slide. And what we've done here is we've split it in accordance with growth, because the city will experience some growth, so there will be some new ratepayers coming to the city, and also a rate increase to existing ratepayers. So you can see in that first set of numbers, which was prepared before we factored in the QV revaluations, we basically saw a 50-50 split between growth and rate increase to existing ratepayers. Now, it needs to be right from the start, Te Āki Wai is going to be a new ratepayer within our city. So this is they will take responsibility for the properties where the water utilities are currently located. We are transferring across to that company, a CCO, all of those properties, and they will, and essentially, historically, they were properties that council owned and we never rated. Now, with the transition to Te Aki Wai, they will own them, and we will rate and they will pay rates. So for the purposes of this analysis, we consider Te Aki Wai to be part of that growth number. So you can see there the rate increase to existing ratepayers before the revaluation we had at 3.47 million. And I've provided a couple of ways of analysing that increase as a percentage, because there's a few different percentages out there, so I needed to be very clear what the percentages actually are. I've got there a 4.1% increase forecast rates excluding waters, and a 2.8 as a percentage of the forecast rates including three waters. Now, there's different venues or different forums are quoting different percentages, but I just wanted to give you both so that you understood the magnitude of that proposed rates increase before we factored into the calculations, the revaluations. Now, after the revaluations, it's a very different picture. And we'll go on to the QV revaluation very, very soon, but it's a very, very different picture after we've factored in the QV revaluation. Because although the city needs an additional 6.867 to balance the budget, that's million to balance the budget, actually after the revaluation, that growth figure you can see has grown to being $100,000 more than what the city actually needs, which is quite staggering, the impact of the revaluation on the city. But this is all we're doing here is the mathematics. It's as simple as that. We're apportioning the rates to the properties as they lie in accordance with the QV revaluation. So what you can see all of a sudden, where we've been historically talking about a 3.9 or a 4.1 or something in that magnitude, all of a sudden the rates increase to existing ratepayers across the city on average, and it's really important to state on average, is going to be around about zero. Here I've got a negative 0.1, but I'm allowing myself a little bit of contingency given the earlier statements I made about the QV objection process and those types of things. So essentially, existing ratepayers for non-three waters on average will be around about zero. Right. That's, I guess, my point number one. I hope you're ready. So at this point, I think it's really important to just review what happened with the QV revaluation. If it's had such a massive impact on the numbers, how and why did this happen? This is basically a straight copy and paste from the QV report. So this is not our work. This is the QV work, where they look at the categories that they monitor, and what they call them sectors, the sectors that they monitor. And in particular, if you look at the CV percent change column, which is the column kind of in the middle there, you'll see most of them are negative numbers, negative percentages, indicating that most categories have decreased in value. But there are two very, very significant exceptions to that. And you'll see the one halfway down, which is called utilities, and that's increased by 60%. Okay, so just to reiterate, this is independent, qualified valuers, QV. They do this for most of the country. This is what they are saying. The value of the properties on which the water utilities and electricity utilities and anything that fits into that utilities definition has gone up in value by 60% since last time they valued them. So that's an enormous. That's the main reason why on the earlier slide we've gone, that growth number moved from 3397 to 6967. That is gone the wrong way. So that is the prime reason for that driver, so the value of the utilities. The only other number I will point out which is positive is the value of industrial. So industrial has gone up by 11.7%, the CV values. The commentary that we've received from QV is around the shortage of quality industrial sites in the region, and that's really impacted on values for industrial. But there are those two positive increases in value, but the rest are effectively negative numbers, essentially moving value away from, say, residential and away from commercial, away from lifestyle, etc. That's a theme which has massively impacted on our numbers once we run them through the big number machine, which Graham is responsible for. Now, if we take the QV categories, if you like, they call them sectors, but we run our city according to rating groups, and they're slightly different, but you'll see similar numbers. So there you'll see the utility number, it's up to actually 62.3%, industrial 15.8%. So they're slightly different, but they are showing the same theme, if you like, that the QV numbers do. These are the actual categories that we operate in this city in our rating groups. So what does that actually mean as an overall average indicative impact on rates? Well, we've got some numbers here, and we're running with average values as at July 25 and comparing them with average values in July 26. And if we just concentrate on, say, the residential line, we've got an average house in 25 was 850K. Obviously, with the drop in value coming through from QV, we're dropping, that house. Nothing's changed except the value. That value's dropped to 821. So we can calculate now what the rates were, what the rates will be under the proposed draft annual plan that we have before you, and we can see that actually, considering the non-Three Waters element 2 rates, you can actually see that they will drop by, on average, around 5%. And so you can work your way down that final column there and see which categories have the largest decreases, which have some increase, and so on and so on. But what we thought we'd do is we thought we'd just step you through different categories one by one, so you can actually see what this impact looks like when we add in the Te Aki Wai layer and the Greater Wellington Regional layer. So the first category that most people are really interested in is residential. So what does it mean for us as residents in the city? And we've tried to do this, we've broken it into, if you like, 4 different price bands. So we're calling them the lower quartile, medium quartile, average and upper quartile. I'll work just through the average column, which is the one in the soft apricot colour. So this is pink, okay, pink, soft pink. So this is what we regard as almost like an average for the city. So last year, that average house in Porirua had a value of 850. As we mentioned, QV value is bringing that down now to 821. Now, we've got the 3 categories there in the top table there. So Porirua City Council, Te Aki Wai, Greater Wellington Regional Council, and then a total. Now, just to make the comparisons work, we've put in the Te Aki Wai column the number in 25-26 that council would charge for Three Waters, just to make the comparison of what's happening to rates and what's happening to water are very, very clear. I mean, obviously that's part of the Porirua City Council invoice at the moment, but for the purposes of this analysis, we've just put it in the Te Āki row to help with this kind of analysis. So if we look at that average, those average columns, what we can see is that the Porirua City Council rates have gone down for this average property by about $189 in the financial year. Te Āki, or effectively the water costs, will have gone up $344, and Greater Wellington Regional Council rates will have, based on the projections that we can see, go up by $73. So in the course of a year, the first year, 26-27, for an average ratepayer in Porirua, they would need to find an additional $228 in the year. We've got there the next set of percentages just shows that those percentages, well, the first percentage you would have seen from the earlier slide, so the negative 5%. So Porirua City Council rates, as far as the non-Three Waters element of it, will be going down by 5%. Te Āki, obviously the charges on waters, it's been well signalled in the media. We are seeing an increase to this residential property of around about 18% on Three Waters. And for Greater Wellington Regional Council, we're seeing about a 7.1%. Now, the weighted average of all of those changes is around about 3.4%. For that average $821,000 property in Porirua, that's around about $4.39 per week. That's going to be slightly different for houses depending on where they sit in the value spectrum. Some will be paying more, some will be paying less, but you can see on average for residents in Porirua, it's going to be somewhere around about $3.88 to $4.41 per week as far as a weekly increase to what they have to pay for these particular services. Should I stop at that point just for questions, if clarification if I need to?
Thank you very much, Ian. That's a lot of information and very good information. Before we get into questions, I will need to formally move this to put it on the table. So before I do that,
Okay.
do you have any final comments? And then I'll open for discussion formally
Well,
after
I
that.
could keep going with the other categories.
I think that would be
appropriate?
useful.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're happy to
Yep.
work through the full presentation. And then for councillors, just so you're aware, once we've got through the full presentation, I'll move this to get it on the table. We'll open it for discussion. And as signalled in my email, I'll provide as much time as needed for people to ask clarifying questions to make sure we have a full and robust understanding of what's being proposed here. So if you're happy to continue, Ian, thank you very much.
Thank you. So that's residential. The next one is rural lifestyle, less than 50 hectares. And you'll actually see more red on here, and red is good, by the way, in this instance. Not often I'd say that, but in this instance. So, and you'll see in the Te Āki line there for rural, the charges that Te Āki will be making to rural customers are zero. So those that are not connected, freshwater, stormwater, etc., Te Āki will not be invoicing them in the 26-27 financial year. So automatically you can see, looking down at the average rural lifestyle less than 50 hectares, they're going to make a $332 savings in the water space, and in non-Three Waters, there has been such a value change, etc., that their rates will also come down by about $720. The only number that does go up is Greater Wellington Regional Council, which we have no control over. But you can see here that the people that are in this category will, on average, be paying almost $1,000 less per annum than what they are currently paying in 25-26. So we are aware that there was a jump up in rates that they were paying in previous cycles. This is perhaps offsetting that big jump up that they've had in the past. Again, I'd just like to say this is just how the numbers are falling. There is no trickery or anything to this. This is just applying the Porirua City Council rates increase as we understand it to be today, the Te Āki pricing policy as we understand it today, Greater Wellington Regional Council policy pricing policy as we understand it today. So that's the rural lifestyle under 50 hectares, rural greater than 50 hectares, something quite similar. So if we just focus on that average annual increase, it's a negative number, around about $1,000 less that they will be paying per annum. Again, largely driven by the Porirua City Council rates decrease and the Te Āki water charge, the absence of Te Āki water charges. So again, that's a fairly positive story for that category. Hongaweka, so we've pulled that out. By the way, we're going through this systematically in the order that we have presented in earlier slides. So again, they will be paying less. It's $283 less when you compare or bundle all three of these charges together, which is good. And this chart, this is quite a busy chart, and I apologise. We've called it other, commercial. I'll just start by saying commercial is difficult to get an average because commercial is so big and wide, and how many pans have they got and how many this and that and the other. So we've tried to average eyes. I don't know if that's a word. We've tried to figure out what an average commercial ratepayer looks like. And so we've done the same analysis here, and based on the changes that we see as far as rates, Te Āki Greater Wellington Regional Council, again, we believe that they will be paying a lesser amount, somewhere around about $564 per annum, and that'll be around about a 2% drop in what they pay. So commercial come out of this exercise quite well. Industrial, however, and that's, if you remember the earlier slides where QV valuations went up for this category, this is one where we're starting. Well, we can definitely see they are going to be paying more. So Porirua City Council, the rates contribution there, so $1,872. That's up, from 25-26. As is Te Āki, as is Greater Wellington Regional Council. So a lot of those things are driven by that increased capital value that QV have recognised for the industrial category. And so for them, it's actually around about a 10% increase. So that's something to be aware of. The BSERP, I'm going to refer to Graham because oh, yes, thank you. So the BSERP, just to make sure that I get it right, is the Business Park Small Unit Rating Package. So this is the category that we introduced last year. And effectively is those smaller, well, it is what it is, small unit rating packages that we discussed. They will be coming slightly down as far as the full year analysis shows. But then the last category there is obviously the utility, which is essentially the largest item in there is Te Āki. So you can see that if spending some time on this particular category in 25-26, those those properties were valued at $11 million, and now they'll be $17.9 million. So that's the 60% increase that we talked about in the earlier slide. So you can see the Porirua City Council rates are greatly increased as a result of that higher CV value coming for that category. Te Ake Wai will not be charging for there is no water charge for those assets, so there's a savings there for this particular category, and Greater Wellington Regional Council going up as well. So that's essentially that's the category, along with industrial to a certain extent, that are balancing out a lot of the savings that are elsewhere in the city. To just finish all of the categories, motel, they will be paying a little bit more, so about $1,000 per annum. The shopping plaza category are paying less, about $21,000 per annum. And the derelict building, I think we have three properties in this category. They'll have a slight savings. So that's the breakdown as far as the various rating categories go. But I just wanted to leave you with some high-level summary points. To balance the budget, Council needs an additional $6.9 million. The majority of this $6.9 million will be sourced from something we're calling growth, and growth includes Te Ake Wai, which will be a new ratepayer to the city. The average rates increase to existing ratepayers, excluding Three Waters, is going to be around 0. After allowing for Te Ake Wai charges in Greater Wellington Regional Council, an average residential ratepayer will be paying approximately $228 per annum more in total, which is going to be around about $4 per week in 26-27. And that is the end of my presentation.
All right. Thank you very much, Ian. There will be an opportunity in a moment for questions. I'm just going to remind councillors about the process that we're going to go through now. There are a number of things that we're discussing in this next paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this in a second to get it on the table, including some particular recommendations. And I have as well an updated chair's recommendation just to reflect the information that we've just received. I'll then open up for questions and discussion on the presentation. After that, we will then talk about the specific request for funding around the National Music Centre, and then we'll move from that into any proposed amendments. So just so everyone is clear, that's the process we'll go through. I'll make sure everyone has the opportunity to speak on each of those items if they wish to. So I am going to move the motion to get it on the table, including that in clause 5, we approve the grant to the National Music Centre, noting we'll then have a discussion about that and decide where we land. I'm also moving the recommendations with the addition of a chair's recommendation, if we could have this up on the screen, as clause 8, to note that subject to any last-minute changes through the QV objection process, the current rates impact, excluding Three Waters, to existing ratepayers is approximately 0% on average in 2026-2027. That's seconded by Mayor Baker. So we're going to move into questions now. I've got a list building up here. I've got Mayor Baker first, then Councillor Fellow, then Councillor Duncan.
It's not a question, it's a comment. Can I make a comment to that or not? Would you like me to wait till the end?
I think we'll do questions first,
okay,
if that's okay, and then we'll move into comments. So I will keep it to just questions for now. So I'll go Councillor Fellow, then Councillor Duncan.
Thanks for your presentation, Ian. Okay, so there was a lot of information in that, so I'm just digesting it now. What it seems like to me is we have now got more ratepayers contributing to the pie of rates. The pie's had to get bigger, but there's more players in there. There's more. It's been sliced up differently, and Te Ake Wai is one of the bigger ones. where before we didn't have rates for our water assets being collected. So that's the gist of it so far.
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. And then just one other thing, or another part. There was a slide there that said 288 extra a year. Sorry, I think it was towards the end.
I think, is that for the residential 228?
Yeah, so I just wanted to be, 228.
Slide 7.
So is this saying that for the whole year, next financial year, households will only pay on average an extra $228 for the whole household bill of rates, including water, including Greater Regional Council and us? Is that what that's saying?
Correct. Based on what we know now, and we think most of these processes are near the end of their, they're pretty mature, so they should be about what we don't expect Greater Wellington Regional Council to suddenly go, 30%. I mean, they're pretty mature in their processes by now.
Okay.
So you are correct. For an average residential ratepayer, we're expecting around about $228 per annum in additional cost.
Okay, so thank you. Sorry, the question's just gone out of my head. Do you want to?
I can come back to you if you
Come
like,
back to me,
Councillor,
yeah,
if you
thank
like.
you,
Okay, cool.
thank
Thank you very much. I've got Councillor Duncan and then Councillor Law.
Yeah, thanks for this. Zero. That looks pretty damn good. My question relates to differentials and Te Aki Wai's involvement in paying heaps. Were they aware, were Te Aki Wai aware of this rating process when they made the numbers that you presented with this?
Thank you. That's so to answer that question, when we have been on a little bit of a journey with Te Aki Wai. So if you recall, a year ago they released their water services delivery plan. At that time, we understood the rates on the water utilities network to be, it's actually in the paper, I think, was it 2 million? And then as part of the process for the water services strategy, which was released 2 months ago perhaps, we updated that amount to consider the differential that all the other councils have been applying. Porirua was a little bit behind with regards to the differential. We worked that through with Te Aki Wai, and they were comfortable in the advice that we gave them that the rating impact on those particular properties would be more, and that took the rating amount up to 5.4 million. Sorry, these are including, thank you, Graham, including GST, if you want to fact check me. But this QV revaluation has taken it again even further, and that's now at 8.9 million, including GST. And, it's a conversation that we've had to have with Te Aki Wai, but at the end of the day, it is what it is, and so they have used these numbers in their pricing policy, etc. Yeah.
Councillor Lawler.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Duncan, I had exactly the same question in terms of has Te Aki Wai actually factored this into their costs? My other question was around the industrial sector. Have we had any feedback from them in terms of the rate increase that we're suggesting for them? That's my first question. I also had a kind of a technical question. When we look at the rural rates...
Sorry, Councillor Law, I might just answer that first question and then I'll come back to you for the second one.
Yep.
Yeah, we haven't. These are presented to you for the first time, and we will need to have some conversations once we have your feedback.
My second question is perhaps historic. Going back to the rural rates, I thought in terms of water charges that they paid a percentage, and there was a public good argument for rural properties paying a percentage of the Three Waters charge, even though they had tanks, etc. So that's no longer the case in the charging models?
Yeah, through the chair. You're correct. In the general rate for water and for stormwater and also for wastewater, well, stormwater is 100% general rate funded, and there's a small percentage of both the drinking water and the wastewater currently general rate funded, and that was public good, correct. However, Te Āki Wai in their pricing policy have moved drinking water to 100% charge, wastewater to 100% charge, stormwater, they've made it a 10% fixed charge and a 90% priced on capital value. But it doesn't affect, but they've also said on the stormwater side that rural for the first year, and this is a qualification which we've also talked through with the Residents Association, is that it's only for the first year. Te Āki Wai said that they're not going to charge for stormwater to rural, but they may change their pricing policy, and Jim may, yep. So hopefully that clarifies. Yep.
No further questions for now, Councillor Orwell. I've got Councillor Waddle and then Hayward.
Yes, just when you thought you'd seen it all around the council table, you come to us with a net negative 0.1 rates increase.
Let's call it zero.
Yeah. Look, two little questions from me. Obviously, the reason we're receiving this information today is just due to the timing of QV's valuations, and this is all part of the normal process you would have done leading into an annual plan or long-term plan?
Correct. We are the last council in the cycle of councils being in the QV revaluation process, if you like. So where other councils had perhaps had this information, a few months earlier than us, we really only received it a matter of a few weeks ago. And to process that huge amount of data and analysis into our rating model has taken some time. But we've literally finished working on this presentation. I think the Democratic Services team wanted it yesterday at 2 p.m. And so we literally managed to deliver in time for that deadline. Still working on this presentation. So it literally is hot off the press. It is something that ideally we would have had out earlier. But as you can see, the QV revaluation has been a major impact in our numbers. So where we were talking about a 3.9% in earlier papers, even the draft paper that is before you, that's a little bit out of date now because of this late breaking QV revaluation impact. So yes, ideally we would have had this to you earlier, but I am not in charge of time.
I think it's worth noting the work you guys have done to get it to us today. So thank you for that. My next question is just around, obviously we set the rates on the 25th of June.
Yes.
Is there potential, outside of people disputing their QV valuation, is there any potential to change on this figure?
The answer is pragmatically no. The window is after this meeting, depending on some of these things that are before you with regards to fees and charges and so on. If today's effectively the last day for us before we actually have to start committing to the processes that we have to commit to to enable a presentation of an annual plan on the 25th. So effectively today, please, any feedback, any last little changes. Now, having said that, and I know Graham will probably not want me to say this, but if something happened in the next few weeks to the world economy, you know, we would have to figure something out. But I can't see. I mean, we'd be talking catastrophic, and so in the avoidance of a catastrophic event, you know, today is our last opportunity.
And just to clarify, as part of that question from Councillor Whittle, the recommendation that we have in here around the National Music Centre, that's factored in to these numbers?
Yes. $57,000 in the scheme of the budget is one of those things that we can make an allowance for. Yes.
Okay, cool. That's good to know.
If council.
All right, I've got Councillor Hayward and then Leggett.
Ata Māori, mātua upoko me he kai, kanihira katoa, me he kai mahi, talofa lava, kia ora tuahine. I'll have comments later on, but let's just go through a few things so we're clear here. The projected growth analysis, how confident are officers on that based on our previous budgets and annual plans and long-term plans, and being able to achieve that is a realistic estimation?
Well, I'll start, and Graham can correct me if I deviate. So look, we are confident. We've actually looked at the growth in 25-26, which, so the current year, and compared it with previous years, with the previous year. And we've just, because as council will be aware, rates, the rates revenue line has been tracking a little bit higher than annual budget. And that's because our rates assumption last year wasn't high enough, and we actually have had stronger growth than we expected. It's around about 1.4%, I think, we calculated as just a very simple analysis based on the number of rates invoices that we've generated in the last year. Very simple analysis, I admit, but that kind of indicates to us that we've had about a 1.4% increase in the number of ratepayers in this current year. For the purposes of this this annual plan, I think we've gone with 1.2 or thereabouts. So I think we're still being a little bit conservative. Now, the 1.2 is what we would call normal growth, and would exclude the Te Aki Wai effect. Adding Te Aki Wai on top, obviously, this is the one and only time we'll ever see growth anywhere near this. But I think we're confident on those numbers, particularly given we've had those conversations with Te Aki Wai around the rate impact for them next year.
Next question. I think this will be relevant to some of the people who are in public gallery and some of those who are watching on YouTube. Obviously, with the analysis of the impacts to households, in particular residential, there is still an increase from Te Aki Wai, and you've used the numbers from Te Aki Wai as you understand them to be at this point in time. But you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I just want to make sure that had Te Aki Wai not been in existence, that line, which would be back inside council, would be an amount significantly higher than what Te Aki Wai is currently saying. Is that correct? Was it correct for me to say that?
That's quite hard to answer, because that line will be heavily impacted by a capital program.
Yep.
And their capital program might not be the same as our capital program.
But considering that we passed our LTP and that there would be no changes to capital program, assuming that there weren't any, it was still a larger number under our projection than it was under Te Aki Wai's.
Graham's saying yes. So
thank you.
If I can qualify, it's because
appreciate that.
because they've got the ability to borrow more, and that was the whole part of the reform, because we were constrained by the 280%.
Yeah.
whereas Te Akiwai is not. So they could borrow more and spread it out over a longer period of time.
It's important for those who are listening in and watching to understand that distinction. In terms of, I want to also avoid creating any seed for conspiracy theory. Let us make sure that Porirua City Council cannot control anything that Greater Wellington Regional Council can do with regards to the setting of its rates.
Correct.
And that Porirua City Council cannot change what quotable value does with regards to the valuations.
Correct.
And that it does have a extremely limited, it certainly has no direct day-to-day role in Te Akiwai's ability to set its rates.
Correct.
Thank you. No more questions.
Just before the next question, sorry, I just need to say for members in the public gallery, please don't approach the council table during the meeting. I'll move through to, I've now got Councillor Leggett.
Thank you, Chair. Just for the wider audience again, can you just please reconfirm to us that what you've talked about delivers a balanced budget and that it also fully funds depreciation next year?
Thank you. That's actually a very good point to make and to reiterate. We have set key what we're calling building blocks in the budget process, and one of those building blocks is that we balance our budget, and connected to that is the building block of fully rate funding depreciation. These are two things that we have never managed to do before, or we may have done one or but not the other, etc. So to actually achieve a balanced budget in a year of such change is both a wonderful thing from an accounting point of view, and sets us up. It makes sure that you get the generational impact right. You're passing current costs onto the future generation. Neither are you getting current ratepayers to pay for the future. So that's the beauty of a balanced budget. You are and rate funding depreciation. That's the beauty of that. And so this budget does achieve those things.
Thank you. Just one further point, both for councillors and for the wider audience. Can you, in simple terms, explain to us what balanced budget means?
A balanced budget means that your revenues, simplistically, revenues equals expenses. You are neither creating more revenue than you need or less revenue than you need. It's the holy grail of public sector accounting, effectively taxing or rating exactly what you need in that particular financial year.
One more, Chair. And so it would be fair to say that, well, it would be truthful to say that if we don't have a balanced budget, in other words, it's negative, not positive, then that would be debt funded and that ratepayers would pay for that.
Yes.
All right, I'm about to get into people's opportunity for a second question. Before I do that, I just want to check in with councillors that have not yet asked any questions. I'm going to give you a chance first before I give people round two. Not seeing any other hands going up for now. Okay, cool. So I've got Councillor Filo, Duncan, and then Hayward.
So this was my remembrance questions coming back to me. I've got three questions. Ian, you said that our paper before us may not be as accurate. I just wanted to confirm the 6.8 million extra that is needed, and it sounded like majority of it is coming from growth. Is that the 3.9% increase? Is that what that equates to? 6.8 million.
No, the 3.1. If you've got the slides in front of you, I think. Yep. So if you refer to slide 3, The little section at the foot of that slide, which talks about the position before revaluation. So before we had this, thank you for bringing that up. So before we factored in the QV revaluations, you'll see the line rate increase to existing ratepayers, the second to bottom line. We thought that to fund the new rate revenue that we required at the time, we thought it would be around about, well, we said in an earlier paper 3.9, this says 4.1, but around about 4%. We thought that we would need to increase rates to existing ratepayers, correct?
So that was an average of what you thought
At the time.
at the time. So the pie has still gotten bigger, but the percentage that it's gotten bigger.
No, the pie is still the same. It's just now, if you look at the after valuations section of that table, you can see that basically it's the same number. It's just massively skewed to growth now.
Sorry, what I mean is if the pie was the same as last year, then the costs would be the same, but costs have increased on council's expenditure. So that's why.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
So what I'm saying is costs have gone up, and council is needing more money for the non-water rates than it did last year.
Correct, yes.
Correct, right. So the pie has gotten bigger
From last year.
from last year.
Correct, yes.
So my question was, it's bigger by 6.8 mil. So that no longer means it's not, I mean, I can't do the maths right now in my head. It's not 3.9% bigger, 6.8 mil over.
No,
Yeah.
no, because even before the revaluation, we were still allowing for some growth. So we knew Te Aki Wai was going to be a new ratepayer. We just hadn't figured on such an enormous swing in the QV revaluations.
And their slice of the pie.
Their slice of
Yeah.
the pie, they basically now got the full pie.
Okay, so that brings me into my next question, which is around, because I saw in our report, I can't remember which point it was in there, but it basically said that Te Aki Wai are going to be paying more rates, but they will be recovered. They will have to recover those costs through the water customers, so who are our
The
rate
same
payers.
people, yes, yes.
Yeah, who are our rate payers. So, so that's why this number 288 is. I mean, it sounds really good, but it is surprising me. And I wanted to ask, because in November we were told that the average increase that our residents would be paying for water from this year to next year was 41%, because we took into account the 3 LTP increase years. So, which is a huge increase, but now are you saying it's 18%? That was in the workshop on the 13th of November. Yeah.
Sorry, could I, just to clarify, a 41% increase in
the water
costs?
Water costs, yeah, from this year to next year.
So I can't specifically recall that paper, but just to remind council of the journey that Te Aki Wai have been on. They went public with their water services delivery plan around about June or something last year, midway through last year, and then they've recently came out with their a draft water services delivery plan, which they'll be finalising later this month. So they've had effectively 2 goes at going public with their pricing. We've seen their an interim pricing pathway that they've been proposing. I don't recall a 41% increase. I apologise for that. But I think the water services, the draft water services plan that they went out with a couple of months ago had around about a 14% increase, I think it was. And they've since lowered that to about, this is the, I'm probably straying into a space that we don't control here. But just what they've gone out with, I think they've recently dropped, given that they are going to adjust their capital program, they're adjusting their financial metrics by which they are tracking to, and so they've dropped their increase to make it easier for the community.
It's 18 for us, but it was going to be 21.
Okay, Graham's better with the detail, but yes, sir.
Yeah, it was going to be, the first lot of pricing, it was going to be 21% for Porirua City. We're one of the highest increases than the city, so the other numbers they're quoting are the regional averages. We're higher than the regional average. It was going to previously be 21%. They've reduced that in the information they gave us to do on 21 May, and that went down to 18%, and that's reflected in these numbers as the 18% increase year on year. Assuming that the water charges which we are getting this year, they were going to have charged for.
Cool.
And that's the way this presentation has been done.
Just to confirm, the number, the percentages I was quoting was regional averages. Graham's
14 was at regional, but
yeah,
ours, it
Graham's
did say 18 on
yeah,
the... on
Graham's
the,
far better with the.
But overall, what households on average will be paying was $288 over the whole year.
Correct. After factoring in water, non-water, non-water, and Greater Wellington Regional Council.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
That's everything from you, Councillor Filo. I've got Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, thanks. Can you remind me again, the utilities, what is, so we've got water and electricity, and that's it, isn't it?
Mainly, yes. Telecom as well.
Okay.
Electricity, telecoms, and Te Ake Wai. Yeah.
So the rates for the electricity providers are going to go through the roof for them as well, are they?
Depending on what assets they have in the city.
Yep.
So this is again is an average for that sector. QV will be looking at each of them individually.
Yep.
So individuals could be different than the averages. We just
That's cool. Thanks.
Councillor Hayward.
I will not pepper you with questions that regarding the operations of QV or Greater Wellington or Te Ake Wai. That's not your job. But I do want to just check on something that was raised as a response to Councillor Leggett, and that was that in the absence of a balanced budget, if we have unable to recoup through because our costs are higher, we would need to. The question was that we would need to borrow to cover the shortfall, but it is also true that we could also increase fees and borrowing to meet that balanced budget position as well. I just want to be clear on that one.
Yes, you are correct, but the quantum increase in fees and charges would have to be enormous.
Indeed.
It's not.
You would effectively have to remove the entire ratepayer covering of those areas that are covered under the revenue and financing policy, right?
Yeah, correct. What 1% change in rates to, if you did the equivalent in fees and charges would probably be like 3 or 4 times the 1% that you'd have to change fees and charges by.
Okay, I might come back to that point later on. And in terms of, again, those building blocks, as you were mentioning before, around the full depreciation, around balanced budget, and also maintaining levels of service and committing to projects that we already have. I note, for instance, one example would be the riparian planting work that our city does to help improve water quality for our harbours. That's all kept in as part of the assumptions of this.
Absolutely. We have not made any cuts to programs, of that type to cut, costs Okay, we recognise those are a priority for council.
Excellent. Thank you. No more questions.
Councillor Ford.
Thank you. Firstly, I just want to acknowledge and thank the staff for the titanic amount of work that you guys have put in to bring the numbers to us today. Also acknowledge a big part of the growth is due to Te Āki Waia, as previous people have said, becoming a ratepayer. Really appreciate that number, 0 increase, the average 0 increase across the residents. But note that the residents will still feel that burn because Te Āki Waia is obviously going to pass it on. You explained earlier, just along the same similar lines to Councillor Leggett, around the balanced budget, but can you, in simple terms, for the wider audience, explain why not funding through debt is a good thing for our ratepayers, and why a balanced budget is better than not?
So it's like if your personal finances, if you are unable to pay your way personally, then you're going to have to rely on a credit card or a sort of short-term loan, or put it on the mortgage, or something along those lines. At some point in time, you have to pay that money back. And usually you're not just paying that money back, but you're also paying interest on those forms of debt. So you might feel a bit more comfortable in the first year because you have this access to this money, but in future years you're probably going to regret the decisions that you made in that earlier year.
Sorry. So does it keep rates predictable and avoids generational debt as well?
Correct.
Thanks.
Okay, cool. Momentarily, we're going to move through to comments. I just want to check. I know we have another question from Councillor Wheelock, but this last opportunity before comments, if anyone else wants to get on the list for questions. This is just question if there are any more questions, and then we will move into comments. So it looks like, okay, this is the last question for now from Councillor Wheelock.
Thank you. Continuing on the balanced budget topic, so if you've talked about we would need to get debt to balance it, but can you explain and clarify if we used some portion from the favourable position this year, as in cash reserves, towards next year's rates, why would we take debt out if we actually have the funding?
So when we manage our cash, cash is different from revenue. So we have to report on, from an accounting point of view, on deficits, surpluses, those types of things. Mm-hmm. I think where you're going is with regards to cash. It is true that we, by having a lesser deficit than what we had planned, that is a really good thing. So in the current financial year, to be less worse is a good thing, but we're still in a deficit position. We're still not able to recognise all of the, we're not able to cover all of the expenses that we're incurring. And so we will have a deficit in the current financial year. That's what we report on. That's what we're measured against. That's what the international financial reporting standards, require us to report on, etc. Our cash position is important, and we have a cash flow statement, and we have to recognise the cash coming in and how that cash has been spent. But the important thing from an intergenerational perspective is always going to be that deficit surplus position. So,
is what I'm hearing you say is, while the favourable position and if it was collected through rates this year and this financial year, it would be identified as revenue, but the moment it goes over to the next financial year, it no longer identifies, or we can't identify it as revenue because now it's going to be cash accumulation or accumulated cash or something
can I be
to our equity.
Yeah, can I be quite clear that there is no cash accumulation? So, by underrating in the current year, which is what we have done, we have relied on additional borrowings or to fill that deficit in the current year.
But if $11 million of that deficit is related to non-cash, and that's 11 million out of $14 million deficit, is related to non-cash, right, as in depreciation because of water assets that we didn't collect revenue for, why would we be in taking out debt for something that's on the books?
Yes, you are right. So we wouldn't be borrowing again to fund depreciation, but what we would be doing is under allowing for depreciation in our depreciation reserve, which funds the renewals and capital renewals and so on. So by underfunding our reserve, we're essentially pushing out those costs on the future generation.
But those assets, come 1 July, will transfer, as in next month, they'll transfer to Te Aki Wai, and so will the future obligations to collect depreciation to replace those assets.
Yeah, correct.
Is that all your questions, Councillor Filo? There'll be an opportunity for more, because you've obviously got the amendment later, and if you've got specific questions in relation to that when we reach it. Okay, cool. We're going to move now through into comments in relation to this, and then after we've had our comments on this, we'll then talk about the specific request of funding around the National Music Centre. I've got Mayor Baker and then Councillor Lawler.
Thank you. What a morning. Fabulous news. I have to thank the staff, the CEO and everyone, especially you finance team. You've had some really curly questions which you keep answering over and over again. Lots of moving parts in this with the balancing the budget and fully funding depreciation and the three waters and the valuations. So this actually hasn't happened just by chance. The elected members and the staff obviously have worked through this to balance the budget carefully. They've challenged assumptions, identified savings and efficiencies, and balanced affordability with our responsibilities to maintain services and invest in our city. I'm really proud of that outcome. There's not many people that can sit here and say we're going to get to a zero budget increase. At a time when many households are under real financial pressure. It represents a genuine effort by this council to do everything possible to ease the burden for our ratepayers. So I'm really happy, and that's why Standard & Poor's are sticking with our A+ budget. They see this council as someone, or a council that is strong, working together to get the best for our councillors. We don't have a hidden money to hand back to our councillors that I see on a sign. We don't have cash to give you back. We are working really well. So I want to congratulate the staff, and I know you guys have worked so late and that this couldn't come any earlier. So I just want to say thank you to the team, and the ratepayers should be happy with this. Thank my councillors, because honestly, you've worked so hard. Thank you.
Kia ora, Mayor Baker. Councillor Lawler.
Kia ora. Yes, thank you. There's obviously a huge amount of work that's gone into this, and I think Mayor Baker is right. Like, some of the really tough decisions were made last year for the annual plan that we're currently in to kind of help us get into this situation. But it also shows the weight of the Three Waters infrastructure in Porirua City's budget and the impact of shifting it out. And I mean, I do have a residual concern about the fragility of Te Aki Wai. You might say not our concern now, but of course it is the concern of our residents and ratepayers. And, it has to be a viable entity going forward, or else we've gone to all of this trouble for no great benefit. So That is a concern. I guess the only thing I would say is all of our work in this annual plan so far has been focused on our financial models and the numbers, I guess because of the opportunity in the shift of Te Aki Wai to put those building blocks in place, and I think it's an enormous achievement. But we've had very little conversation about levels of service in the city and what that means for levels of service. So I'm taking your assurance that in funding the rates increase that we predicted we would need last year and funding that for next year, that we can meet our levels of service. But I suspect, looking around the city at what needs to be done, that we will have some significant conversations in the next LTP about how we keep the city moving in a positive direction. So I guess my only concern, because, you know, people focus on the sort of the headlines, of course. You know, the year before last, we had a very significant rate increase. Council worked very hard to reduce that to a more moderate rate increase for this year. Next year, we're talking about a 0 rate increase. But I'm not sure we can guarantee that trajectory past that. I suspect the LTP is going to be a tough year, and the rates will come up again. So it does make it kind of hard for residents to get their heads around how these things keep moving up and down and around. However, we take the victories where we can find them, and this will be a good year. So thank you. Kia ora.
Tō tōku, Councillor Lawler. Councillor Waddle.
Hang on, there we go, got that working. Look, thank you again to the whole council team for the work to get to this point. It's been immense, you know, and to, you know, to get to 2 p.m. yesterday and you know the day before the meeting is a pretty tight deadline, and I think you've done exceptionally well to get us to the point prior to that as well, to get to this annual plan that we've discussed at length for the last few months since the election and prior to the election. I also want to thank the public for being here today. I think it's good to have your involvement and engagement. It's really good to see. Thank you for sticking through this. This has been a longer conversation than we normally would have. And it may not be the most exciting conversation. We've certainly had more exciting meetings, so you're more than welcome to come again. I think I just want to speak to what we're talking about today, and that is we're going to hit a balanced budget. And that's, you know, something amazing. In my almost 7 years on council, we've talked about it and we've kicked it down the road, like councils before us and councils will continue to do around the country, is kick the can down the road and ignore the real issue. So I think what we're achieving today is monumental. I think I was flicking back through previous presentations on this annual plan process, and there was one slide in a presentation, Ian, and it was simply, this is an annual plan like no other. And I think you might be the oracle on that. So, yeah, this may be an annual plan like no other, but next year is a long-term plan, and that will also have to be a long-term plan like no other. With amalgamation knocking on our door, we need to set the direction for the city correctly, so that if amalgamation goes ahead, our aspirations and desires for the city are on paper and met. Absolutely. So well done, everyone, and here's to a good annual plan.
Thank you very much, Councillor Waddle. And just reflecting on that, the comment that you made around the importance of the balanced budget, and off the back of the comments as well from you, Councillor Lawler, about how this is a good annual plan today, costs are going to increase again in the future, reflecting on the significance of us putting ourselves in the strongest possible position to be able to address those costs through this balanced budget. That there is no firmer ground than we could possibly ask to stand on. And yes, things will happen in the future. I take a lot of heart in knowing that we are well set up to address those from a position of strength, which is not a position that we've always been able to come at from in the past. Continuing on comments, I've got Councillor Leggett.
You stole my thunder. Yes, the 0% is a one-off, but I agree with you, Josh. What it does, it sets us up for whatever the future holds, and that's about all. Aside from thank you for the immense work put in by staff.
All right, so are there any further comments at this stage, noting that we do still need to work through the National Music Centre and amendments before voting on the substantive motion. I'm not seeing any hands, so I'm moving straight on. So we're now going to open up for questions and discussion around the request for funding on the National Music Centre. So I'm just going to remind councillors, because there's a few things we're jumping about between today. This relates to recommendation 5. Recommendation 5 in the report is agree to either approve or decline. At the moment, what's on the table is approve. The request for grant funding of 0.057 million for the National Music Centre, we've been told by our officers that has been factored into the numbers that we're seeing here today. Unfortunately, Dame Prendergast hasn't been able to come and speak on this, but I know that Mayor Baker has some additional information from her own conversation. So Mayor Baker, I'll invite you to provide comment on this, and then I'll open up for questions.
Yes, I can't actually read what Kerry has sent, so... But, however, the mayors of the region and Helmut Modlik and the CEs went on Friday and toured the centre. Out of this world, when we have been wanting to put one in Porirua over at Pātaka, when I first came into council, we tried to put one of these centres in. We cannot put in the money that is required that has gone into this centre. It's going to be open for our schools, our residents. They're going to have these free days every month, every week. So it's something that is just state of the art. And I do hope that everyone gets to tour through it. There is a recording studio downstairs, and that can come with 3 different rooms recording at once into it. So the fact that it's not just the university and the music school, they are there to help our community groups, like the Aotea group that's going away, the Bishop Viard choir. It is open to all these people, and there is no cost for them. So I have to say I fully support it, because to start with I was in real doubt, and then once I did the tour, there is no way. This is a really good regional project. Wellington City have already funded it. The other mayors are going back to do it. And it is one thing that we can say that is a regional project for everybody to get something out. So I think the request that she sent through is fair and reasonable, so I fully support it.
Thank you very much, Mayor Baker. Councillor Lawler.
Yes, it is a shame that Kerry's not here. I guess I have some really basic questions, like the School of Music exists within the university. Does it need to move? Why move a perfectly functioning School of Music?
Because all the rooms are down there. They want to be down in the CBD, so they are still funding for that with another building, because they can't run down from the campus to get to the recording studios. So they had agreed as part of the funding deal where she got funding that it would move down there, and if they don't move, then the funding goes. So they have to be very careful.
Right. I mean, yeah, I would have liked to have asked Kerry about this. It feels to me a little bit like Wellington City has spent a huge amount of money refurbishing the town hall, and now it's looking for a way to really make that building work, which of course is a responsible thing for Wellington City to do. How much of that is a regional issue, I'm struggling with a little bit, although I do acknowledge the School of Music is an amazing resource which our colleges already use. My own children have access to the School of Music through their colleges.
Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, look, this is one part of the arts that I really do support. I think that Dame Kerry and the group have put the spade work in. They've raised 27 million already towards this. It's a fantastic asset for our whole region, and it'll bring a lot of money into the whole region as well. It won't be just to Wellington. And it's education, performance, innovation, the whole lot that our kids will have the benefit of being able to access. So yeah, I think that undeniable. I think it'll make us a powerhouse in the whole Asia Pacific region, and well worth supporting.
Councillor Waddle.
Yeah, just a quick question. I don't know if anyone can answer it. Well, I hope someone can answer it. If we were to approve this, like all our grants that we provide to people, will we receive a report back to show the benefit that it has been given to Porirua residents?
I would say we will, and we can actually get a tour in there for councillors. She's already offered that.
Councillor Philo.
So some questions. So, because I'll be honest, when I first saw this, I was thinking, why is it coming to us? It's not, I don't know whether it's really within our scope. That was my first kind of thoughts, and I wondered, first of all, if there was any data on people from Porirua using the current facilities, because have I heard that right? There is a current facility, but they want to move it.
No, the facility is up at Victoria University. We're talking about the students moving down there to be part of that other campus around it.
But it has already existed.
The School of Music is, this facility can't be replicated. There's no recording studios like this.
So we don't really have any evidence that yet. It's just an assumption that our community will actually use it.
Well, the tutors and lecturers, do you want to speak to this, Wendy, or not, who were there said they will.
I was on the tour with the other mayors and CEs. There's multiple rooms. They're all soundproofed and they have some pretty flash equipment in them. The outreach to Porirua, well, we were all talking about our own communities, of course, when we were on the tour. And there's free access. You have to book, but there's free access to a number of the rooms in there. I couldn't even count the number of rooms, but there's a lot of them. I think, the School of Music has been wanting to shift for about 15 years. This has been a project that has been circling because their current facilities are inadequate. So this is a state of the art, and we did have somebody who, the School of Music, head of School of Music, talking in what was pretty much gobbledygook to me, but about the quality of the sound, and so it can score films and all of those other things. But I suppose we were more interested in the smaller spaces that would be available for community and school, they're in particular, that was our focus really, because that's our interest. There will be professional musicians in this town who will access some of those small studios. They'll have to pay their way for that, but the issue we were really interested in was the free spaces and how often would they be available, and they kind of they sold it to us quite well, you'd have to say. It's obviously a relatively modest sum of money compared to the costs we were looking at for our own facility at Pātaka, which were in the millions, as I recall. So it's always a bit of an issue, these regional things, what's the benefits that flow here? And it's obviously up to council to decide, whether to do that.
Yeah, and obviously Helmut was on the tour, supported it. We can't replicate that out here for our kids and for our performing kids, students
Couple
that go
more
in.
questions. Yeah, thanks. Are all the other councils? You said Wellington supporting this, so have they given approval for 193K?
They paid last year.
Oh, this is just these aren't all for this year.
No, they paid their money last year. They put their money funds in straight away. It's a one-off amount from each council.
Oh, okay, so
Some are, well, no, as in it's stated in the paper that it was they had different amounts. It was per population, and the others are doing it through long-term and annual plans.
any updates on where the other councils are sitting as well, the ones who are on that list on page 25?
Is that something officers are able to speak to?
I think they're all going through the process. I don't have an update. Wellington was the only one mentioned on when we were on the tour, so yeah.
Am I right in understanding, Mayor Baker, that the mayors of the region have indicated support, but they all have to go back
Yes,
to their
they've gone back to their councils. Yep.
Okay. Is that all your questions, Councillor Fielder? If you have comment, you're welcome to give it now as well.
I guess, no, I don't have any more questions.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got Councillor Fermanus, you withdrawing your question. Is that right? Okay, I've got Councillor Ford Leggett, Lawler, and then if there are no, and at that stage, if no one is proposing to change the recommendation on the table, I will move the conversation along after those speakers. So, Councillor Ford.
So mine is just quick. I'm supportive of this small contribution. I think it represents an investment not only in just a building, but it's an opportunity to develop talent across the Wellington region, including our many local artists, especially our rangatahi. And Porirua has a proud history of producing outstanding musicians and performers. And we know that access to this type of infrastructure can be a significant barrier. Unless you're a school like Rangikura that can create an art space in their buildings. But that said, that particular type of space was only accessible for those for Rangikura students because they had won a national competition, a music competition. So they had access to that space. Otherwise, they have to book those types of spaces to be able to go in and record music. So I think for the small contribution that we're giving, it's a win-win.
Councillor Leggett.
So it's a comment. I was initially sceptical about this, but I think it's a project, it's an example that reflects and demonstrates what we can do as a region together. So for that reason, I'm supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Leggett. Councillor Lawler?
It would be useful to be clear that this is one-off. I sensed a little bit of prevarication about whether this is a one-off ask.
I just know Dame Kerry Prendergast.
All right.
Fair to say what we're voting on today is a one-off, and any future...
My second question was whether it would be appropriate to ask Mr. Friend for a comment on where he sees this fitting in terms of the arts and culture scene of the city. Just some of us remember the loss of our performing arts school from Whitireia, and actually that is still felt in the city.
Mr. Friend, through the chair, has lots of personal views on this. As an officer, I will default to you all. However, personally, Porirua's got a really, really strong music scene. We've got so many churches here. We've got so many amazingly talented singers. Like you look at what Ngāti Toa's doing with their rangatahi, they're, taking high school to national levels. We don't have any of those high-level performance facilities. If we want people like who's that? Radna, for example, local Porirua talent had to leave the area to get those kind of facilities. If we want to grow that industry, that's an economic development investment. That's a regional way of doing it. We can't afford to do it on our own. 50 grand, I think personally, is a small contribution for what would be a major output for our city.
Thank you, Ruben.
Okay, just in finish, that's helpful. I'm not opposing it. Gosh, I'm finding it hard to get that out, aren't I? I'm happy to support this. I would like to see if we're going to get future reporting on the access of Porirua residents and schools to the facility.
Okay, thank you. About to move on. Taku, was there anything you wanted to say on this?
Yeah, I support it wholeheartedly, and I think the real crust of it all has to come from within the community. They've got to use it. They have to use it. They can't come themselves too far. Oh, we haven't got a van today to take their kids in. They've got to use it, folks. That's all I've got to say.
Thanks very much, Taku. I'm going to move the conversation along at this point because everyone has had the opportunity to speak. So the recommendation will remain as is up there at the moment, which is that we are agreeing to approve the request for grant funding. Just while I have the floor on this as well, I just want to make a small semantic improvement to the chair's recommendation. This isn't going to substantively change anything. I'll just need approval from Mayor Baker as the seconder, that we shift the wording. Instead of it saying existing ratepayers, we say existing Porirua City Council ratepayers, making it clear that this relates to Porirua's rates. We're not speaking to Greater Wellington or anything like that. That doesn't change the substantive at all, but just making it abundantly clear what we're referring to there. Are you comfortable with that, Mayor Baker?
I'm happy with that.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, we are now going to move through to discussion around amendments. So we have had two potentially signalled amendments, and I'm going to address those in the order in which they were signalled to us. Obviously, there has been a lot more information that has come to the table since those amendments were signalled. So I'm going to begin with Councillor Phelan. Do you have any final questions that you want to ask that would potentially inform whether or not you still bring this amendment, or would you like to move straight to bringing it? Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Over to
no,
you.
that sounds good, thank you. Okay. So that's my amendment. I've got 3 questions about it first. The first one is, can officers confirm that the improved financial position being reported through 25-26 does include real revenue and funding that has already been received by council, including rates revenue? So I'm not saying all of the improved position, but that some of it, or at least the amount I'm speaking to. Should I say it again?
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
sure.
Thank you.
Can officers confirm that the improved financial position that is being reported through the 25-26 financial year includes real revenue and funding that has already been received by council, including rates revenue?
I would answer that as a yes, with the noting that we follow usual accrual processes. So, but they would be very, in the scheme of the full amount of revenue, yes. The answer is generally yes.
Okay. Can officers also confirm that if a portion of that improved financial position is not used to reduce the 26-27 rates requirement, it will instead contribute to council's opening financial position for 2026-27, whether through the cash reserves, the equity, or the balance sheet movements?
I mean, the answer is yes. So the better result in the current year will translate to a slightly better opening position in the balance sheet in the 26-27 year. Slightly better than the plan had.
Than what was planned?
Yes.
Or,
Yes. So the plan had a big backward step. What we will actually see is a smaller backward step, if that makes sense, in the opening position.
yeah, because it was the plan was a 14 million,
Correct.
but we've gotten 7 million in favourable position to budget.
Yes, we will likely end up with a $7 million deficit in the current year.
Okay. In simple terms, is it fair to say that this is not simply an accounting adjustment or paper saving, but it reflects real funding that has been received by council and is now available for councillors to determine how best to use it? What I'm asking for is it real money? It's there.
Well, everything that we include in our ledger is real in some sense. If you're talking about cash, then that's a slightly different question. I mean, obviously, our ledger is a consolidation of cash and non-cash. But as far as the word real, yes, I can categorically respond with yes, everything that's in the ledger is real.
The funding that I'm speaking about, that was collected through a rates increase. So what I'm trying to get to is that 3.5 mil that was collected through rates increase, not a paper savings, but actual funds that are sitting right now as revenue in this financial year.
So in the current financial year, we we received 123 million, I think it was, in total, correct? But I'm not sure what the 3.5 million is.
So I got that number from where we rated for the regulatory reform, and we collected rates for that, and we rated for the water transition for 2 million, and that's been handled a different way. So that is where I got the the $3.5 million.
Okay. The 2 million with regards to the water transition contracting and consulting costs effectively, which was put in the budget, we will be spending that, and we have been spending that. So that's been funding the Te Āki Wai establishment team.
My understanding was, though, that we funded it through a CapEx rate, but now it is going to be part of the debt transfer to Te Āki Wai.
Yes, we will transfer it to Te Āki Wai, correct?
Yeah, and so that $2 million we've been advised in other meetings adds to the favourable position that the current year is in. As in, we're less of a deficit because of it.
I think that's... So, yes, it's when we set the annual plan for the city in 25-26, we did allow for that as being a rate-funded expenditure. We have since recognised that we have the ability to transfer that to Te Āki Wai as part of the debt amounts in alignment with all of the other councils in the region. But stepping back, it's still a cost to Porirua City Council in the first instance. So when we look at balancing the entirety of all expenses and all revenues across Porirua City Council, the mere fact of the matter is that we're in a deficit position.
Just quickly, procedurally, councillors, we're approaching 10:30, which means we will have been sitting for 2 hours. My suggestion that I want to test with the room is that we move a procedural motion to extend sitting until the completion of this item. We would then adjourn for a break before we move into public excluded. So I'm going to propose that procedural motion.
Could we have a break instead?
I'll need to put this to a vote. So it's seconded by Councillor Duncan. I'm happy for you to... One question. So there's no ability for councillors to debate a procedural motion, so we go straight to a vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That is carried. So we'll progress on with this. Councillor Filo, you can resume.
Okay.
If you don't have any further questions, Councillor Filo, would you still like to bring your amendment?
Well, that's why I would like to have the morning tea break, because we've just to process all of the information that we've been given.
I understand that the motion has already been voted on, so we're going to continue sitting until we finish this item. If you would like, I'm happy for us to move to a discussion around the other amendment, and then you can consider that. Councillor Lawler, you signalled an amendment ahead of time. Are you still planning on bringing that amendment?
Yes, I am.
Okay, cool. So if we could have Councillor Lawler's amendment on the screen, please. Do you have any clarifying questions, or do you want to bring it straight away?
I wanted to amend it slightly. Can I do that?
Yes, you can. And once you have provided that, we'll then have to seek a seconder for the amendment.
So my amendment is, sorry, my old lady eyesight, that we include 30K in the annual plan to begin proactive engagement with city residents. That's my amendment.
So that council includes 30,000 in the annual plan to begin proactive engagement with city residents and ratepayers and the local decision-making services and other implications of local government amalgamation. Is there a seconder for Councillor Lawler's amendment? Seconded by Councillor Filo. I will remind you procedurally, if you second this amendment, you will not be able to bring another amendment. I believe you can only move or second one amendment if this is unsuccessful. Okay, cool. So just with that knowledge in mind.
What does that mean? So
just to clarify, understanding order. Okay. This is seconded by Councillor Waddles. That way you've still got yours available, Councillor Filo. Councillor Lawler, the floor is yours.
thank you. I'll try not to take too much time. I think for me, the process that I understand we're engaged in is that there is a working party working on a proposal for the Minister for the first week of August. Most of the work of that working party is out of the public eye for very good reason. There's a lot of negotiation, there's a lot of complex stuff to be worked through. However, the timeframe is very short. The Minister then considers the proposal. The proposal then moves to legislation in the 2027 year. We don't know yet when. And certainly at least one of the regional mayors, the Mayor of Wellington, is talking about a referendum that people may get to vote on whether or not they support the overall concept, the proposal. My concern is that there's a lot of water under the bridge between now and then. I think Te Aki Wai is a very good example of how quite complex matters take time to work through, and people don't really understand the implications till it's right on their doorstep. And then in the absence of information, people do their own research, do their own internet looking and create their own information, and that's not always very helpful to the general debate. I think the question for me is not, right now the question is not whether or not people support amalgamation. So I think there has been some suggestion that I'm trying to reopen a debate of whether or not people want amalgamation. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the conversations that the city could, and in my view should be having, about what we think amalgamation might mean for our city. How might Porirua function in the likelihood of amalgamation? What does it mean for our decision making? What does it mean for our ward structure? What does it mean for our services? Do we want community boards or not? I mean, we are essentially talking about the disestablishment of Porirua City. And so if that's to happen, the earlier people start thinking about what that means for them and what they want from that for their city, the better. My view is if we wait till we're getting to a yes or no question for residents, there will be a great deal of unhappiness about that process, and people who support the amalgamation process are actually less likely to get it through in that scenario, in my view, if we have not taken people along on the journey with us. So I am not talking about funding a statutory consultation that runs triangulated surveys, etc. I'm talking about looking at ways to start the conversation in our city. And in fact, I note this week we had the first request from a residents' association. Can you tell us what's happening about amalgamation? So I think it is important that we start to front foot those conversations, that we start to put out basic information, that we start to make ourselves available for meetings, that we start to talk about amalgamation in our city so that by the time we get to what will be a historic change for our city, people feel they've been part of those conversations. It's a pretty simple request. And in terms of the budget, it's not really about the money. If we can pop 50k into the budget, then we can certainly afford to do this. It's much more about the principle. Do we want to start having these conversations or not? That's my amendment, Kia ora.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lawler. In a moment, I'm going to come to Mayor Baker. I wonder first, I just wanted to ask a clarifying question. Would you be able to elaborate a little bit further on around how you landed on this particular figure, and if you have any preliminary ideas around how you see that being used?
Yes, and I mean, it is quite tricky for me because I have a professional background in this space. However, I'm also acutely aware of not telling officers how to do their job. I mean, you could spend 50k easily, you could spend 100k easily, you could spend 200K easily, you could spend $500,000 easily. It really is, how long's a piece of string? However, for this sum of money, I believe some simple planning could be done, some simple FAQs could be produced. We could establish a place on the website where people could start looking for information, and we could put out invitations to groups to say, are you interested? Do you want to chat? And actually, councillors and the mayor could be doing most of that. It's not officer heavy. It's simply about kind of opening the invitation to, yes, we can tell you what we know so far. I thought Mayor Little did a great job at his breakfast the other day. He didn't try and sell anything, didn't try and persuade anyone. He said, here's what we know so far, here's what the process is, here's what we're working on. It's as simple as that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lawler. Wendy, I wonder if you might be able to speak to this proposal and the idea that Councillor Lawler has put forward, and whether or not this would be a sum that would enable us to do the sorts of things that she's talking about. And after that, I'm going to come to Mayor Baker.
We always accept money for things, of course, so there is that point. But, at the moment we don't really have staff who are engaged much in this process. As you know, it's kind of happening regionally. We do have somebody involved in that working group, a couple of people actually, but the things that Councillor Lawler and Councillor, honestly, most councillors tell us how to do our job, so it's okay. We listen to everybody. So, yes, we will be doing a lot of that anyway. Will this help a bit? Yes, there's probably some collateral that it would help with. It is mainly time of yourselves around the table, probably, maybe some staff. We are struggling a little bit to work out exactly how to multiply, certainly elected members, can do this. It's a bit hard for staff to represent a council view when we don't really have a council view. We don't have a proposal. But you're right, the conversation and getting that started is a thing. Will 30,000 help a bit? Maybe. So, happy to accept 30,000.
Okay, thank you very much.
Will of the council.
Just noting as well that Councillor Ford has rejoined us online. Mayor Baker.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not sure how far 30,000 would go either. And Mayor Little spoke for the mayors at the table yesterday. We all knew what he was going to say. We don't have a proposal. So all we're going to do is listen to people, because actually there is no proposal to put. And sorry, I'm speaking too close. I'm doing a Ewan. I think they'll probably get annoyed because we don't have anything to give them. And until something comes up, and I thought we would have something, we haven't got there yet. We're still obviously having discussions. There is another meeting later today. Happy to talk to people, as I said to somebody via Messenger last night. And once we have the detail, because it's the detail that's missing. People want to keep their local voice, and that is the most important thing at our table, is keeping local voice. But there is no structure as to whether there'd be community boards, whether there'd be more councillors, whatever. So I'm not disagreeing with you.
Thank you, Mayor Baker. Councillor Leggett.
I just, along those lines, I just wanted to ask whether it would actually contribute to the work that's already commenced, as we talked about last week, and would it be able to shape the proposal that's going to go to government in terms of timing? Otherwise, it just becomes a chance for people to have their input about something that's not really very structured at the moment.
Would you like officers to respond to that?
Either officers or Councillor Lawler.
Well, what I might do first is, because I'll give you the opportunity for the right of reply at the end, Councillor Law. I'll see if there are any further questions. I've also got Councillor Hayward. Yours is comment? Okay, cool. I'll give you a comment and then I'll give you right of reply to end this discussion. Question or comment? Question. I'll go Councillor Fialo and then I'll come to you, Councillor Hayward.
Look, it seems like Councillor Lawler is trying to make sure that the community come along with this and have their input, and made reference to, the water transfer and how learning from that. And so I take your point, and I think it is important that we do have those conversations. My question was really around that clarification of the 30K, and like what will that do? Because I can see your intention and what you want, and because there's a dollar figure here, it would be good to, because I know you asked that question, but I kind of didn't really hear the answer in it, as in what it could cover apart from meetings. Was there anything else that amount of money could help produce the outcome that we're looking for, which is more involvement early on?
All right, I'll come to a comment from Councillor Hayward and then I'll invite Councillor Lawler to close this discussion and speak to the questions that have been asked at that point. Councillor Hayward.
Kia ora anō. My comment on this is that it's best for me to recap where this process had started, and acknowledging that I've always been sceptical about amalgamations in general. That's never been in dispute. We held a referendum at the local government election whether or not we wanted to talk about shared services or maybe amalgamation. It passed, and then it was always the expectation during the conception of that for the referendum question that there was going to be made a commitment by officers to continue to follow through with that work if it did pass. I understand that is exactly the case that has played out. So there would have been, within existing budgets, some commitment around that. Then government has chosen to deliver a gun to the head type scenario in which we are not able, and I feel unlikely, to shift their view around the truncated timetable. They have furthermore made it quite clear that there is no funding from their position in terms of delivering the work that we have done. So let's just remember, central government, you do it or else, and you're not getting any money. I think that I have grave concerns about time frame. I have grave concerns about the degree of talking and discussion and getting robust decision making. I'm mindful of the intent of Councillor Lawler and her qualified experience outside of this chamber in terms of trying to give a number. I am equally mindful, as a councillor that has been through several LTPs and APs, that our expectation is that when proposals come to this table, there is a robustness required as to what is going to happen with the money that we agree to. That robustness needs to be grounded in fact, it needs to have evidence, and it needs to have some degree of qualification by officers, if possible, to make sure that we are certain when we make a decision in compliance with our oaths of office and the Local Government Act. Now, Councillor Lawler's amendment came up relatively late in the process. It is of a figure that I still think is arbitrary in description. We could argue that number could be any number because we don't have any detail as to the determination of what that actually means. Some of the things that have been described by Councillor Lawler should have been done already and should have been factored in existing budgets. It will double down on all of us as public representatives to play our part in trying to help shape and give confidence to the public as part of the uncertainty that this situation has developed. It does require of us a degree of staff time and resource to do that. There is certainly some already with regards to the commitments made as a consequence of the referendum. But to bring this up in this way would make me feel uncomfortable about lacking the detail that I need, as I have had for all the other times when a decision around money has come to this table, that it should be a robust kōrero. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. We've got one more question from Councillor Whelo, and then I will come back to Councillor Lawler.
It's a question for officers. With this money that's been proposed, is that something that will likely be able to be found in the budget, or will this cause a imbalance to the budget?
The amendment means that it'll be additional money to that which we already have. We will be preparing kind of in the process of, certainly the government's announcement has slightly wrong-footed us in terms of the kind of timeframe we were on for engagement and consultation, but we will be preparing an engagement plan and we can substantiate the costs at that point. We haven't done it yet. We have, pushed some communications and engagement out, but clearly, there's more work to do. We have been sort of trying to work out where the regional kind of work is likely to take us. Don't want to kind of get out of sync with our other councils in the region, but we can present to you a budget that shows you where those costs would fall. We just haven't done that work right now. But the amendment means it's new money.
Just clarifying, everything remaining the same in the numbers we saw earlier. Currently, we're at negative 0.1 on the rates increase. There's about 100. Noting these changes, but assuming everything stays the same, with the big asterisk that everything may not stay the same, but assuming everything stays the same, this could be funded without us creeping up above 0%. Am I correct in understanding that?
I think that's a fair statement, yes.
Okay, cool. Important for us to understand that. I'm going to invite you now, Councillor Lawler, to, if we will, right of reply.
Thank you. I think one of the challenges that we have outside of the working party is we are to an extent boxing in the dark. The indication we had from, I think it was Martin Jenkins at our previous workshop, was that the proposal that would go to the Minister because of the timeline was most likely to be a declaration of willingness rather than a detailed proposal that said we imagine this many councillors, this many community boards, these people making decisions on these issues here, this level of decision making across the region happening here, there and there. That was the advice we were given at the workshop. If I'm wrong, if by August the 9th we're submitting a proposal that has all of that detail, then we're in a very different scenario. And actually then my support for amalgamation weakens quite significantly. However, what we were led to believe is that what's going to the Minister is quite high level. Therefore, there is still quite a lot of opportunity for our residents to talk about how they most want that proposal to work. That's what I'm trying to have us understand and capture. So that's my first point. When we talk about we can't give them the detail, of course I understand that. My suggestion, though, is what we should be starting to make very clear to them is the process. We've had people talk to us today about, we need to back away from Te Aki Wai, we need to not agree to that. We've already agreed to it. People don't understand that. Or you need to make sure Te Aki Wai doesn't charge us this much in water bills. That's not our choice. People don't understand that because we don't have sufficient information out there about how this actually works. And that doesn't serve our residents well, in my view. In terms of the robustness of figures, I asked for advice in the time frame I had, having seen the annual plan papers, for advice on what this might look like. The advice I got, to be fair, I don't think was that helpful in my view. This is the annual plan process. I have been waiting for conversations in this annual plan about levels of service. We have not had them. I could continue to ask, as I have done for months, for a plan about how we are going to engage the city on a very significant amalgamation debate. We have so far not had that plan. I could continue to ask for that after we've set the annual plan. However, my concern was I would be told there's no budget for that. If you wanted that, you should have budgeted for it in the annual plan. That is what I'm attempting to do without writing the engagement strategy myself, which is not my job. That's where I've got to. I'm trying to work with the levers and the opportunities I have to put a very simple request, which is we open the conversation with our residents about amalgamation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lawler. I'm about to call for a vote because I anticipate this isn't going to be a unanimous vote. I will ask for a division on this, so hands up when I call for votes so we can see who is voting what way. So to include Councillor Lawler's amendment in, we're voting on Councillor Lawler's amendment. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Cool, and hands raised. So we have Councillor Lawler, Councillor Waddle, Mayor Baker, Councillor Filo, myself, I'm voting in the affirmative as well. All those against? Councillor Fermanus, Councillor Hayward, Councillor Leggett, Councillor Duncan. Councillor Ford online, I haven't seen which way you're voting on this one. Could you let us know if you're please voting for or against Councillor Lawler's amendment? In the absence of a response, I will take that as an abstention. So I'll clarify where our numbers have landed on this. Okay, so that's 5 for and 4 against. That amendment is carried. Thank you very much, Councillor Lawler. That will be added as a new recommendation into the substantive. I will now come back to Councillor Filo. Do you still wish to bring your amendment?
Look, I'd like to just, if I could comment and say that I'm not going to, and just say why.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Look, I genuinely wanted to bring an opportunity to us as councillors to provide relief to our community. We know they're struggling, and we know that our rates bill have been one of the highest in the country, and that was why I brought forward this is why I proposed this amendment. Now I have obviously seen the new information this morning from our officers, which has indicated that we're going to be seeing a below zero impact on the rates, and so I believe the intention that I had to provide relief is being done. Okay, so I'm happy to pivot and to read the room in here as well with regards to the different advice that's been put forward in emails. Yeah, I guess so. I'm not going to put that amendment forward because of the new information that we've received that families will be paying less come next year.
Thank you very much, Councillor Filo. I'm going to move into general comment now. So just while you have the floor, anything else that you wish to say on the substantive motion, and then everyone will have their last say before we go to a vote. No? Okay, cool. All right, I'm going to open the floor now for any final comments on what is now the full substantive motion. And I'll remind councillors that we have said yes on the substantive motion to the National Music Centre. We have the Chair's recommendation noting the 0% increase, and we have Councillor Lawler's amendment. Would anyone like to speak to the substantive? I've got Councillor Hayward, and Councillor Waddle, and then Councillor Lawler.
Kia ora no. First of all, I I'm supportive of the substantive. This has never happened in all the years that I've been a councillor, and it may never happen again. So let's mark it in the history books. A 0% rate increase for Porirua. 2 years ago, we were looking at a 14% rate increase for this coming year. At the start of this year, it was revised to around 4%. Today, it is kore. It's a reminder that you have to get all the evidence first. To not jump to conclusions on the Facebook or the TikTok. To not rouse trials for political points or the likes, because if you do, you can't call victory if it was never yours. Nevertheless, we are all beholden to the end result. So my warning to those watching this meeting today is that Bob Marty said it best. You can fool some people sometimes, but you can't fool all the people all the time. So let's get past the number on the rates bill, because I think there's a couple of things I want to acknowledge. In the last year's election, Councillor Trill and I pushed to ensure that our council actually passed a balanced budget where revenue equals costs out. No more excuses. Today's recommendation gets us one step closer to achieving that. I would call that getting shit done. Another thing that we didn't have to do was reduce levels or service or resort to increasing fees. I also call that getting shit done. Finally, in terms of the accounts, to fully depreciate all of our big infrastructure after more than a decade of mahi is a huge milestone. It means the next generation of ratepayers aren't pulverised for the decisions of the past. Guess what I call that? Getting shit done. I appreciate the efforts of our kaumahi to walk a tightrope in terms of analysis and advice on this one within the timeframes allotted to us. And as has been said before, while next year's LTP will be a much harder deliberation, it is nice to know that some of the burdens that have complicated that kōrero in the past are about to disappear. So I hope that today's votes are always a reminder to work in good faith, to do your research, show you're working, and never count your chickens till they hatch. Kia ora koutou.
Kia ora, Councillor Hayward. Councillor Waddle.
Yeah, I haven't got anything more to add really from what I said earlier about the work that's gone into this. All I have to say is well done. We've got to this point. Next year is a new chapter, and we've got to work extra hard to get stuff done.
Sorry, get what done? Councillor Lawler.
Oh yes, kia ora, thank you. I just wanted to thank the officers. It's a huge piece of work on top of an already incredibly busy time frame. Also wanted to thank my fellow councillors. Actually, we decided ages ago that this was an annual plan we wouldn't run a formal consultation on. That was new for me, so I was a little bit confused by that process. I think it's entirely appropriate, given that we have been quite rigorous in our interrogation of this annual plan. So while it feels kind of painful and a bit tortuous at times, it's appropriate. And so I think it's job well done. Kia ora.
Councillor Fermanus.
I'm no accountant, I'll start with that point. And so I appreciate the work from officers which has been done in these reports and these numbers. And, given this is no easy task, especially when it includes such a large transitional handover of this scale. I just want to clarify my position. I supported Councillor Filo's amendment here because I supported the principle. A time now more than ever, if there's even the smallest chance providing more financial relief to ratepayers, then I'm up for exploring it. But I also want to commend the efforts from Councillor Filo. It is a hard position to be in, and I know the space where she comes from. It is a very desperate attempt to provide that relief to those that are suffering. And I'm speaking to the elderly that are on fixed incomes. I'm speaking to those young new homeowners, which I myself was. It is hard, and especially when you're introducing a new bill that's coming up this year. And so I appreciate your efforts, Councillor Filo. But that being said, I'm very happy with what we've heard today, and with the 0% increase. And again, I acknowledge the work being done by our officers here. So kia ora.
Just looking around for other speakers. Mayor Baker.
Thank you. In reply to that, Councillor Fermanus, every councillor at this table is aware of the suffering in our community and how people can't pay, and we all work and all have worked really hard to get this down. So I want to thank the staff again and the councillors. Great job. Never before have we got to this, and I doubt whether we'd ever get there again. But thank you to the staff. Honestly, the hours you have put into this, we appreciate it. So thank you.
All right, in the absence of any further comments, I'm going to have the last word and then I'm going to put it to a vote. So there you go, it's last opportunity. No? All right, excellent. Okay. 0% rates increases, 0 cuts to services, on track to a fully balanced budget. How good does that feel? Taking water infrastructure off of our books through the establishment of Te Aki Wai has played a major part in this. And we should acknowledge that, but it also doesn't tell the full story, and I want to reflect on the full story. That story is that for many years now, including through the last two long-term plans, Council has been laser focused on turning the ship around on decades of underinvestment, making hard calls around investing in the most impactful and important infrastructure projects, and reducing our deficit to achieve a balanced budget. That's been slow, hard work, but it has shifted Council's books into the healthiest position that they have been in for a very long time. There have been some significant rates rises in that time, and we should acknowledge that. But throughout, we've been focused on making the right calls to save money over the long term. And sometimes that does mean short-term pain for long-term gain, and we've been acutely aware of that. Making those calls is never easy. We know how tough it is out there for residents. No one ever wants to put up rates more than is necessary. But today is evidence that those tough calls eventually do pay off. By investing in our infrastructure and steadily lowering our deficit towards achieving a balanced budget over the last few years, we have set ourselves up to deliver this 0% rates increase this year with no reduction of levels in service and still on track to fully balance our budget. I'm incredibly happy with the balance that we've struck here. We all agree that residents need relief. We've all worked very hard to make that happen. This annual plan will deliver that relief, and it will do it without increasing our deficit or slowing our pathway towards that balanced budget. This is an annual plan that is mindful of both Council's books and our residents' budgets. I want to take a moment to give huge thanks to our incredibly hard-working council officers that have made this possible. The work of our officers is often unsung. We rely on your advice, expertise, and hard work to deliver on our goals and objectives. You deserve recognition and praise for the work both on this annual plan and the work done in the years leading up to making this happen. And I speak to all council officers here, not just our fantastic finance team, but all of our council officers. Speaking personally and from the heart on this, and as a quick aside, I'm really sick and tired of how public servants have been scapegoated recently, targeted by many over recent years, and I want to make it abundantly clear that here, in this chamber, your work is valued, respected, and appreciated. So thank you very much. To our residents watching today, we know your rates bill is only one part of the puzzle when it comes to household budgets, but it is my sincere hope that this year's 0% increase will offer some relief. As I said earlier, we've had to make tough calls in recent years to get council to a position where an annual plan like this is possible, and you have shown faith in us to continue delivering. Today is proof that long-term benefit isn't always some distant, unachievable horizon. Let's remember that when we are next faced with one of these seemingly never-ending tough decisions. With that, I'm going to put this motion to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much, everyone. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm about to move to bring us into public excluded. Once we are in public excluded, we will then adjourn for morning tea. We'll come back and finish. For those watching online, We'll be moving into a workshop later and doing our closing karakia after that. So I'm going to move that we go into public excluded. That's seconded by Councillor Lawler. Thank you very much. All those in favour, please say aye. Opposed? That is carried.